It was a quiet afternoon in Penosbia. The heat slowly rippled up from the ever-present sand. Pale green bits of shrub hunched in the shadows of nearby buildings. These were tattered wooden things that many a small desert animal had chewed their way into before. If the climate had been even a little bit wet, they probably would have rotted away by now, taken over by mushrooms and vines, until they collapsed into a heavy pile of beams. But instead they stood proud, faintly dreaming of their former days, back when the railroads were king, before the trade routes changed, and the income dried up, and the people moved away. They had been the center of something big. There was a confusing period for a while, where people sometimes came and went and poked around, tourists for an out-of-the-way ghost town. But now there was no one to interrupt their quiet reverie, no one to suspect them of any failings whatsoever. When Douglas wandered near the village, the afternoon sun was already low in the sky, and everything was cast in a beautiful orange glow. He stopped at Peakman's Rock, though he didn't know the name. Really, it was only a very little outcropping in the sand north of town, not much taller than he was. But it stood at such a sharp angle that it almost always blocked out the sun. Fenced in on 3 sides by steep rock, he sat in the shadowy opening and looked grimly out over the desert to the north. Now that he wasn't squinting, he could appreciate some of the subtle beauties. There were different shades in the dusty green plants that he hadn't quite appreciated on his walk, and every rock was a mosaic of quiet colors and subtle cracks. Of course, he had seen these things before. He had been wandering this way for quite some time, but he was always surprised at how a moment could reach out and grab him, like it did right now. So he sat there for a while and stared. Not everyone was as grim as him. Others had banded together to survive the sudden change. Despite its terrible beginnings, people had found peace in the things that they had lost, and strength in the hope that they had found together. In the moments when things were most peaceful, when stomachs were full and the sun was setting, they dreamed that the world would be normal once more, that there would be theaters and libraries and hospitals, and the quiet glow of streetlights in the darkness. One day their children's future might just catch up with their past. Several of these groups passed through Penosbia as the years went by, but no one else discovered Peakman's Rock, and their dreams, which were as beautiful as the setting sun that they'd stared at, disappeared into the distance too. Night fell, and with it, human history, the last few communities wiped away by a cosmic event. And the purest inky blue was shining dark in the fading sky, poured out endlessly, and the stars soaring overhead seemed to stare at themselves at night, with all of the billions of pairs of eyes who had looked at them once.